Hello there folks, and welcome back to Space Engineers. I know we haven't done an episode like this in a very long time. In fact, God, it's gotta be good couple months. Anyhow, this episode is going to serve several functions. Number one, it's going to show off all of the new little design updates they've done to the Easy Start 1 world and a couple of the new things that they've done that I haven't actually showed yet. And the other function it's going to serve is to serve as a test bed for how we're going to be designing our ships in the future. We are going to do some experimentation, I suppose we could say, to experiment to see which kind of ship designs are better when atmospheres are introduced into the mix, because usually I build my ships kind of like the blue ship here that has a couple of airlocks and a couple of very large rooms. And then this is a kind of different type ship that has a number of smaller rooms and quite a few entrances and exits. And we're going to see how exactly each ship can hold their atmosphere when exposed to the rigors of, well, what I would do to it. Alright, so the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to take a look at what they've added in the game that I have not shown you yet. And the main thing that I have not shown you yet are the small oxygen tanks for small ships and the small oxygen generators for small ships as well. Here you can see a small oxygen tank, and if we were to, say, bring this up like this, you'll see that on one side it has a large conveyor slot, and on the other side it has those two small conveyor slots which pair up exactly to the, or at least this type of cockpit, and obviously the fighter cockpit has the large conveyor side. So you can fit these on the back side of the cockpits so that you can get, well, not infinite amounts of air, but you don't have to run your cockpits off of oxygen tanks. And this particular ship has an oxygen tank. I'm not sure if it has an oxygen generator. I don't think that it does. There's just an oxygen tank there. There's no oxygen generator. However, this ship, which is ever growing in length, does have an oxygen generator. That is what the oxygen generator looks like. So if we would bring that up, you will see that is the oxygen generator. It's just flipped around, and just like the oxygen tanks, it has those two small conveyors on one side and the large conveyor on the other side. And no, you cannot put air vents on small ships. That kind of makes sense because there's no real reason to, as if you're going to be pressurizing a large cabin of sorts, you're probably going to be using a large ship. Alright, and as some people have pointed out, you can indeed fill up on oxygen at the medical room only if, and only if, you have oxygen hooked up through a conveyor system, which I don't have in my survival world right now. It doesn't look like the textures match up perfectly, so I'm guessing they're gonna have to work on that, because that doesn't really look very good. But anyhow, I digress. So as you see, my oxygen has deteriorated a little bit, and here we have an oxygen generator hooked up to a conveyor, which goes to two oxygen tanks, conveyor, and some tubes that go directly to this medical station. If I go here and press T to rejuvenate my energy, you will see my oxygen also goes up. And obviously you have to have some sort of oxygen supply supplied to the medical room for that to occur. And that's pretty much all that they've done since the last time we've taken a look at the Easy Start 1 to the platform itself. However, if you've noticed, the red ship has many changes to it, the least of which are the fact that there are airtight hangar doors on here, which means you could theoretically pressurize this entire hangar, even though they don't have it that way right now. So let's take a look at this ship on the inside. We haven't done this in ages. So they have added airlocks, which is smart, I suppose. Turn off our jetpack, and when we open this up, here we go. We are in a pressurized atmosphere. The doors themselves still don't close completely, which I'm guessing they're working on that, as they're working on many other things. And here we go. That's one air vent. It's mirrored on the other side, so we don't need to take a look at the other side. And as you see, this ship, although very large, has very, very small rooms to it, whereas the other ship is kind of small and has a number of larger rooms to it. It's just a little design note to take note of. Granted, walking through this and closing all the doors all the time would become a hassle in the survival world, so I'm not sure if I want to design ships like this, but it's something that we should and could take note of. Also, we have these button panels here, which we probably could put in our Voyager craft that open up the hangar doors. And in here there are no air vents. Yeah, there are no air vents in here. Although presumably you could put some in. So I could put a little button panel here that would open and close the doors, which would actually make a lot of sense if we would put that into our Voyager craft. And here, yeah, there you see it opens and closes it. I suppose I gotta wait until it fully opens before I decide to close it again. Close, there we go. And yeah, it's a pretty cool looking hangar in here. Even has a handy dandy connector in there. And a little viewing platform from the mezzanine above. Alright. It would actually be very handy if, instead of going to the door panel and pressing T, you could just go to the door and press T and it would open. Also, the game would be a lot easier, I suppose, if not the game itself, but using helmets and stuff would be a lot easier if there was just a hotkey to take off your helmet rather than the way that we do it now. We have to go to a medical station, we have to press T, and we have to change our actual character to a character that doesn't have a helmet on. And this is just, we're out on the top of the ship outside right now. So that would be really cool if they would add a hotkey so that we could just take off our helmet instead of having to go to a medical station to do so. Because, I mean, in actuality, you wouldn't have to go to a medical station to take off your helmet, so why should you have to do that here either? So here we are, we're at the top of the ship, where there's a gravity generator, and there are a lot of little passageways with lots of little doors. So my guess is this ship is going to hold up fairly well when it comes to our test, quote unquote, to speak. So this is kind of an interesting design where I don't think they had any room, so they had to put the airtight hangar door here. So we're going to use that as a floor, apparently. This is a very, very nice ship. And then up here is going to be the forward cockpit. Before we walked through the engineering section that had a rear cockpit. One thing that they did not add here is an airlock, which is surprising because they could put another door right here, and that would seal off the outside. And this is actually, if we would open this door, all of the atmosphere in this room would be sucked out. So, yep. They could, if they wanted to. I don't know if I'm in creative. I don't think that I'm in creative. I could put a door here, and then you could have... Yep, I'm not in creative. So, you could make an airlock here if they wanted to, but for some reason they decided not to. Maybe they have plans for that in the future. Alright, so that's what they've done to the red ship. And in fact, I'm not going to bother going the long way out. We're going to do the not smart way out and lose all of the atmosphere. One thing that's really cool, when you crash these ships and breach the rooms, the atmosphere effects of getting all the atmosphere sucked out is really cool. And we will see that in a little bit, because my test, quote-unquote test, is going to be something I haven't done in a very long time. Ram these two ships together to see which one has the best atmosphere holding capability. Granted, these rooms are separated by a very long distance with this hallway in the middle, so I don't know, maybe, just maybe this ship is better? I don't know. Alright, and here we are. We are in this ship, which has a lot of cool little functions to it, such as the little screens that tell you what to do. Right now it says to open it. I probably should close that. There we go. And as it closes, there is an air vent in here somewhere. Yep, there's the air vent. It will start to repressurize this entire cabin. Well, what did I do? I wonder if it has anything to do with those timer blocks up there. Let's close that. And also, there's another airlock there. which are becoming very important in this game. Alright, so there we go. It looks like everything's closed, and as you can see, the oxygen level in this room is now high because of the air vent there. One thing to take note of, though, is having a ship that's separated by long distance and only has one generator. That means if the conveyor gets severed, that could be very problematic, because then you will not be able to refill oxygen to the rest of your ship once the tube becomes severed. And for some reason, this wants to suck out all the air, so let's change that. Let's depressurize that off. Yeah, there we go. Doesn't really want to repressurize, though, which is strange, so maybe there's something odd going on in there. Here is the main part of the ship. There's your oxygen tank. Generator's probably over here. Nope, there's another oxygen tank. The generator's in here somewhere. And up here, if you would remember, way back when is where the engineering section was with a whole bunch of gyroscopes and whatnot, but not anymore. Just a cargo container and a couple of conveyors and a seat or two. Most of the rest of the internals of this ship are going to be, well, obviously in the inside. And it seems a lot smaller than it used to be, but I'm sure that's because they had to add a whole bunch of new stuff. And here is the heart of the ship, the cockpit. Obviously has the different kind of cockpit because you can't actually see anything. And yep, just a little bit of seating. Much smaller ship. It actually does have fairly good modularity to it, but not nearly as much as the red ship. Despite the fact that the floor size is probably similar because of the hangar and the long passageway. So, wow, 2 gyroscopes. They really did nerf this ship quite a lot, because it used to have like 6 or 4 or something like that. But anyhow, I suppose it doesn't need as many if you can just turn up the gyroscope. Yeah, the gyroscope power. Speaking of which, I wonder if they did that. Yep, power's at 100%. Okay, anyhow. Well, let's do what we said we were going to do, and man, I haven't done this in ages. So we're gonna run these two together and see which one has the best atmosphere holding capabilities, and as a bonus, we get to see the cool little side effect of all the atmosphere venting, which is a really kind of cool effect. Let's see if we can hit this as head-on as possible. Yeah, that'll be good. Right there. That's the stuff. And there we go. You see all the atmosphere is venting out in the nice white cloud of dust. And that is that. I'm going to back up a little bit so we can see the damage that we caused. Oh, wow. That's still one thing about this game that not many other games have, is this awesome damage modeling. Say what you want about the fact that it gets really easy, but the damage modeling in this game is awesome. So if they ever did add a proper AI enemy, it would be so much fun. Alright, so right now, obviously the front of the ship is going to still be, or the rear of the ship is still going to be pressurized because it didn't take much damage. But the front of the ship, I can imagine even the hallway itself probably lost atmosphere. I guess we will find, no, looks like this part of the ship still has atmosphere. So it looks like only the hangar lost atmosphere, which is kind of surprising. I was expecting this hallway to be breached as well, and even this doesn't seem to have lost any atmosphere, but it wouldn't take much for that hallway to become breached. And yep, there we go, sucks out all the air. And yeah, the front of the ship is missing. That'll happen. And obviously, the way that we rammed it, there's not going to be any rooms in the front of the ship that have atmosphere. However, it looks like maybe past this door right here, the ship might still have proper amount of, yeah, it still had oxygen, and I sucked it all out, which is kind of strange because, well, let me get my character tools. There we go. There's a gaping hole right here, which is something I wouldn't have expected. Oxygen's high, oxygen none. Oxygen high, none. That is very, very strange. So that must mean that that counts as a closed system. That is something weird to take note of. Not that we're going to be taking advantage of that little bug, but yeah, the rest of this ship seems to be fine as far as atmosphere breaches go. Yeah, the main section of the ship is still pretty good. Obviously, well, the airlock is still in place, but if we would open up to the hangar door, which I suppose the hangar never actually had an atmosphere to begin with, so it wouldn't have been an issue. So, well, that's kind of cool. I think next episode we're going to have to take what we've learned from this little experiment here, where although the numerous amount of airlocks is a pain in the butt, it does seem to have saved the rest of this ship from depressurizing. Because if that one door up there that had that weird little bug where there was a gaping hole in the side, if that would have depressurized, the main section of the ship would have been depressurized, where the engineering section and stuff like that would be, and only the wing pods would have been pressurized. So that's kind of interesting. And I suppose one more thing. They did nerf missiles a little bit, so they don't do quite as much damage. So let's take a look at that one last time before we leave. Let's go in here. We will go to our weapons and tools, get our rocket launcher, and we will fire just a small number of rockets at the blue ship just to kind of see how much damage they do, and to see if this will actually breach the atmosphere. Wow, they really did nerf it, because you used to be able to blow holes in light armor blocks with just one missile, and we expended all 8 missiles in the, well, generally in the same vicinity, and really nothing much happened other than denting the blocks a lot. However, the Gatling cannon's still pretty good. Yep, there we go. We just vented out the middle section of the ship. So, obviously, windows are not good armor, so if we're going to make a station that's going to be a military station, don't put windows on it. That's something to take note of. So, yep, that has been that. I suppose we can go and make sure, even though we did shoot missiles at it, that the main engineering section of the ship did not take any atmosphere loss. Well, it looks like it might have actually taken some atmosphere loss because there's no oxygen in here. Let's take a look. Ow. Yes, it does look like it did breach it, so at least this section. What about here? Okay, yep, there's still atmosphere in this section. So it looks like the front section of the engineering is a little bit damaged back here. There is no air vent, so it can't resupply, unfortunately. And it doesn't look like it could, because there's no atmosphere generating air vents in here either. So, well, that has been an interesting little experiment. So, thank you folks for joining me. Next episode, we will be back with the standard Space Engineers Survival. Thank you folks for joining me, and that will be it for this episode, and I will see you folks next time.